Welcome, any and all, to the new and improved Views and Paradox. As you can see, we've got some color on the text, so that's nice. And we're using a new streaming service, so hopefully everything goes smoothly. And I think we can talk over each other a little bit better than we could before. I'm your host, John Olson. And I'm joined, as always, by the wonderful Rochelle Racine.
Hello,
Welcome.
movie files. Thank you. Thank you.
How you holding up this week?
I don't know.
Any better than previous weeks?
Yeah. But then, this movie threw me for a loop, and I'm like,
It's yeah, this is gonna be a fun one, I think.
yeah.
Joining us for the first time, but you've helped us out actually on the show before. Um,
Oh, no. That was Deanna.
oh, that was Deanna. I'm sorry.
It's
I
true.
got our guests confused because the
Deanna
D.
is also a cool name.
Okay.
I guess.
Well, anyway, first time, Danielle Gibson. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Hi.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe your relation to film, that sort of thing.
Yeah. I'm actually getting my MFA in directing at Chapman University. And I actually just directed a satire short with Rochelle about the beauty community. So it kind of fits because I've always been into social or topical films like this film, but like with satire. So when I started watching it, I was kind of expecting it to be that, but it was everything I wanted it to be and so much more. So
Nice.
that's where I'm coming from with that.
Cool. And we'll get into it in just a second. We just to do some housekeeping up top. We this week we're gonna try something a little bit different than what we've been doing the last few weeks, and we're gonna start with some kind of spoiler-free comments. If we recommend it, kind of our initial impressions, and then we will switch over to full spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie, you won't be able to follow the conversation. Not even that it'll spoil it. You just probably won't be able to follow it, and it will spoil it. So, yeah, that's the note there. I also just want to say we've been having a lot of good participation on the Facebook group. Rochelle's been having some fun with her posts lately as well. Yeah, the interaction's been fun. I don't know, Rochelle. Do you have any kind of favorite things you've seen recently? This is the Movie Club Collective, which you actually renamed the other day to include Views and Paradox, which I appreciated.
I just invited a bunch of my teachers who know about the podcast, and I was like, let me just make sure they know. So they join. Yeah, I think my favorite, I hate to admit this, but was the in the ass thread.
Yeah, ruin a title with in the I have to say though,
It gives me
a little bit of quantity over quality in that in that thread. I like the ones that are they feel grammatically correct.
Yeah, I agree. It was clever. You know, those tickled me.
I should have written them down. I had a couple favorites, and they were eluding my brain at the moment. But I'm not gonna be on my phone because we'll waste too much time that way. Yeah, we've had some fun ones. If to anybody watching this who has participated in that, yeah, thank you for participating. We're trying to make that group just kind of a fun aside. And I think it's working. We seem to have landed on something that's working there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're in that group and maybe you've clicked on this and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Give us a like.
2 away from 100. So
yeah, we're trying to get to 100 subscribers, and we have 250 plus people in the group. So, hopefully, we are working currently to get an audio only version on iTunes and Spotify. Hopefully, in the next week or two, we will be able to announce that's going. We're working it out and looking for kind of the best service to use right now. So let's get into the movie. We all want to talk about it. It's what we're here for. So the movie this week is Sorry to Bother You, directed by Boots Riley. This is his directorial debut, at least feature film wise. It stars Lakeith Stanfield, Tessa Thompson, and Armie Hammer, and then has like a slew of big actors in small roles throughout the film, including voice work and just cameo work. You've got like Danny Glover, David Cross, Patton Oswalt. Those are the voices. And who am I missing? Terry Crews shows up. Lots of
Isn't he
lots of.
canceled? I think he's canceled.
Is he canceled? I think that's not for me to weigh in on.
Same, but I think he's canceled.
I think he's extremely well intentioned though, and I have a hard time hating well intentioned people. When their mistakes aren't like egregious acts against humanity. Like he's just said a few things that people disagree with. So I'm fine with people disagreeing with him, but I still think he's hilarious. So just I still love him. I don't whatever the controversy. As long as he's not like hurting people, I think I'm fine. But yeah, so lots of people. So basically, this film is it follows Lakeith Williams, Lakeith Stanfield's character. His name is Cassius Green, a very not so subtle kind of.
They call him Cash.
Yeah, they call him Cash. This movie is a satire, very like through and through. This is a satire about kind of the race politics and corporate politics and like capitalism in America. It's got a lot of topics right there on the surface, and then like even more going on like beneath that. So the movie is really crazy. It starts with him getting a job as a telemarketer. He just needs money. His uncle, played by Terry Crews, is like going to lose his house. So we have this kind of like stakes set up, and he needs a job. And basically, he discovers that he has a gift for telemarketing salesmanship, which is presented in the form of a white voice, which is played by David Cross. And this is all kind of like trailer right off the bat stuff. None of this is big spoiler stuff. It's really hard to kind of nutshell this movie without giving too much away, I think. But what are your guys' initial impressions, and like, would you recommend it? / who would you recommend it to? Danielle, you seem excited, so I'll start with you.
I'm a very animated person, so I'm like, yes, I love this movie.
Yeah.
I highly recommend it to anyone who's open to it. I do think it's a movie that a lot of people need to see, but I do think that if there are those people who are, I guess, more conservative or like less open, they could start watching it and like completely just shut down, and it won't be really good for them or anyone, because then it, there's just all that misunderstanding. But it's a really great way to poke fun and spell out the problems that are within our society. So I do think it's a movie that a lot of people could benefit from, but I don't necessarily think everyone needs to go out and see it if they're not like ready to be open to understanding it. Because some people might take it too seriously. I mean, it's to be taken seriously, but it's satire, so it's like a mixed bag of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is funny, but it is also horrifying at times.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It is also, and like in a number of ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rochelle,
What's
your initial kind of thoughts?
Real quick, Marquise, he said even if we spoil this film, it still has to be seen to be believed because it's that fucking wild. So very in line with Danielle's comment. If you don't like absurdist humor or movies that have like a semi-overt political statements and a dollop of science fiction, you're going to hate this movie. And one thing I noticed throughout reviews across the internet was this movie is very polarizing. There was very few people that gave it an average rating.
Love it
Well,
or hate
very
it.
few individuals that gave it an average rating. And because it was so polarized, the medium was that it's an average film. I liked it, but I am honestly still in shock. So,
It's rare that a movie can do that to you. Like, yeah, I think this movie is something special in that it's complete bonkersness. This came out like almost at the same time as Black Klansman, and there was like all this comparison that kind of happened with that movie, but they are very different movies.
Yeah.
Even though there is like kind of a similar premise happening where in Black Klansman he talks with a white voice, with a quote unquote white voice. But outside of that, they're very very different movies. Both good. This movie, I think the closest comparison I could think of that popped right in my head was Brazil.
Oh, I haven't seen this.
Have either of you seen Brazil?
I have not.
So it's from like I think it's from 84, 85, directed by Terry Gilliam, and it's not so much the racial commentary, but it is very much like the corporate dystopia, and it's very surreal and it's very like crazy, and in like on this movie's level of crazy.
Okay.
Um,
for me,
so yeah,
oh, sorry, I just
no,
want
no,
to
no, go ahead.
interject. I don't know if I've said this on the show before, but I think that the marker of a good movie is movies that make you think and just change you, you know? And this movie did that. So there you go.
I feel like this movie is both very overt and obvious, but also has a lot of subtlety to it. It like manages to do both of those things. It is a very I would say liberal view, um in the way that it looks at the world, but it doesn't quite let off everyone off the hook, right?
Right. Right.
Um
It pokes fun at everyone, I feel.
yeah, it pokes fun at everyone, and there are a lot of things about black culture in there that I personally can't relate to beyond kind of what I've seen in movies and media and just through discussions I've had with people. But so there is some of that that I think probably went over my head. Um,
Another thing I
yeah.
just want to interject. We're getting a lot of comments today. Thank you guys. Helen Bell said that Brazil is amazing. So, John, would you suggest if the person has seen this film to go watch Brazil, or would you say watch Brazil
Yeah, if
first?
you like one, I think watch the other. Like
Okay.
you'll be down for if you like one, you'll be down for the other.
Do you
So
think
yeah,
Brazil's a better one to watch first, just to kind of like prepare your mind?
they're different. They have their differences. I feel like Brazil is a little bit more absurd from the get go, whereas this one like has that sort of curve up where it becomes more insane the further in that you get.
To
Whereas
say the
Brazil kind of it has a little bit of ramping, but it starts much higher than this one does. Um, this one is more modern though, like so. There's that, like you're gonna hit just some aged. You're gonna hit some tropes in the other one that maybe have aged. The focus was just different.
I feel like they definitely hit some tropes in this movie as well, but they like take it a step further. They like push it forward and critique it, and
Yeah.
that's something that I thought was great. Not
Well,
too.
let's get into it and say this is the official spoiler warning, um, or your spoiler heads up. So, yeah, if you
let's
haven't seen the movie, go watch it, like, or avoid it like the plague if you need to. But maybe you're probably not going to like our podcast in general. Um,
Jacob Herman wants to hear more from Danielle, so let's let her start.
Oh, okay, Jake.
yeah, go ahead and kick us off.
Okay. Well, first, at the start of the movie, the first thing I noticed was its environment said so much about what the movie was going to give us. So like immediately you get like these yellow post-it notes. It's so busy everywhere, and then everyone's blue in the big room where they're working because it's really depressing. It's a depressing situation, and you get this. You get Cash in this interview with the boss, trying so desperately just to get a job, and he immediately just out of nowhere pulls out these trophies that he just like made up for himself. So immediately when I saw that, I was like, this movie's going to be absurd, and I'm for it. But even then, as the movie goes on, you like even if you're expecting something crazy to happen, there's no way that you can guess what's happening, what's going to happen.
Yeah. And it just keeps ramping it, right?
Yeah, immediately.
Yeah.
So I immediately was just of those factors. I don't know if you want to like talk about it in chronological order. I don't want to like, skip
let's
to the
let's
the
start with
steps.
some like early stuff, I guess, about the telemarketing.
Yeah.
I do want to say that I very briefly after high school worked about a week at a telemarketing office.
Why?
The shortest job I've ever had, the worst job I've ever had, and I feel like Boots Riley or somebody in the production has worked at one of these call centers, because like that boss guy who like is always like hyping him up, he's there.
Oh,
Like just like the constant changing people in the background, if you look around at the desks, the coworkers constantly change, like because the turnover is just so high. Like people like me come for a week and they go, oh, this is a nightmare, and then leave. And like you do have like there was like this pool of callers who were like making a lot of sales, and they were kind of, they weren't like this movie's version of power callers, but they were like the star the star callers. And the whole stick to the script thing is
yeah.
exactly like all of it was so ridiculously on point.
And it's interesting because it sets up Cash to be this like there's a book that I read a lot in my undergrad called Tom's Who's Mammy's. It's like a long title, but it talks about a lot of like archetypes in with Black people in media, like in history. And so I feel like they set Cash up to be the Uncle Tom, where he's the one who wants to do really well, and like we see a little bit more of him like wanting to do well for himself, for his family, to provide, to survive. But like we see him like juxtaposed with everyone else who's trying to fight for the like betterment of everyone.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting how they have him just you kind of get that he's like gonna be that way from the beginning, and he like kind of is like no, we're gonna fight for everybody, but then like as soon as he gets hit by a can because he like sells out and becomes a power caller, they label him as that, like very
Yeah.
clearly with his bandage, and like there's blood, so it's like very much like don't be this character, and they're
And it
very
like
aware
keeps
of it.
bleeding too. It's like
The
it's
more
always bleeding onto him.
the more he feeds into it, and like I really like how aware of it they were with that. And then on top of that, the picture that he like brings to his workplace, he like I don't know who it is, maybe it's like his relative, his dad, maybe he said it, I might have missed it, but like he brings his picture like when he sits down and he picks up the phone, puts his picture up, and it's just like a black and white photo of some guy sitting on a car. And then like throughout the movie what the guy's doing changes. So when he starts like jumping in to be like, yeah, we're gonna fight the power, the guy's like, yeah, like next to his car. And then when he starts to sell out, the guy's like, no, like so
Yeah,
it's like
I got the feeling that that was his dad, right?
that's
Yeah.
I
what
mean,
I
that's kind of what it feels like, just because of the time of the
yeah,
picture and how attached to he is. But yeah, it's such a direct correlation to like how he feels about himself,
right.
right?
Or even like telling the audience how seriously they should take him. Like, should we be on his side? Should we be rooting for him to sell out? Or should we be like, no, Cash, turn around?
Yeah, I looked at it like his conscience.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
was like, but also like there was like, moments where it looked victorious and other moments where it was just like shame on
Mhm.
you. And it always seemed like such a strong reflection of his own self image. You
Right.
know, it's this person he idolizes, so much so that he has to always have the picture there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I thought that was a really nice, uh,
Agreed.
just sort of visual.
I really love that. I also loved how when he would make the calls, he would just what's the word, transport into the people's homes
Yeah.
and in the
Really,
most like
really
awkward
good.
situations. That was good jokes, good jokes.
That was something that like blew me away in the context of this movie cost $3 million and was filmed in 28 days. Like
Wow, 28 days.
that's insane. Like the amount of stuff that they accomplished
Right.
with that budget and like with that time constraint, it's just mind blowing. The fact that like okay, we are gonna go into somebody's kitchen, we're gonna like drop the desk down and like physically put him there
It's the little
for
details that
just
help.
like this short little scene. But I thought that was a really nice.
It's like the details of it really sell it. It really makes it real, and um, like it goes with what the explanation of what the white voice was. It's the trying to get on their level. The not just a you're sounding white because you're speaking proper. It's a you don't have any worries. You're not really needing to make this sale. Like you're not desperate for money or what have you.
Yeah.
Um, it was yeah.
And
It's
I did like the line that it's not how they are, it's how they like to be. You know,
Yeah.
you're appealing to like the
yes.
inner desire.
Mhm.
Uh and like yeah, so I really liked that, just that scene where he explains like what it is and how to do it. And his that's Donald or Danny Glover does that scene, and I guess his voice is Steve Buscemi. His, like,
Was it
um,
really? I didn't notice.
yeah, I didn't
I'm
notice
so
either, but
happy.
the people I was watching, I watched it with some of the family, and they noticed that it was Steve Buscemi.
That makes
Um,
a lot of sense.
Helen is a huge fan of like the amount of locations it was filmed, which I totally agree, and like just the art design as well as Jacob. And one thing that I think is important is that they shot over 60 scenes within that 28 days, which I don't know much about like the end of that, like the back end of films at this point, new actress. But is that something that is like
That's insane.
it's
it's
over 2 scenes a day average, and when you consider the length of some of the scenes, like some of them would have required multiple days to shoot. So
Right.
that means there were other scenes where they were just punching out probably 3, 4 scenes in a day.
They would have
That's it's hard to imagine how like exhausting this shoot must have been.
their pre-production must have been. I don't. Do you know how
On
long it
point.
was? Because it sounded like it's very calculated. He knew exactly what he wanted from each scene. Which I mean, hopefully, ideally, that's what the goal is going into
Yeah.
production, knowing that. But like not spending time to make adjustments to get to the next scene, like it makes me think that he really thought this movie out.
Yeah, the only way you can pull this off in 28 days is to go in with like perfect planning.
I wonder if okay, so little trivia is that the entire soundtrack was done by him. Just in case you don't know, he's an activist rapper, and the soundtrack was done 7 years before this film came to fruition. So I'm wondering if
It has
that
the
seven
same title,
years,
right?
yes. So I'm wondering if that 7 years was the production, the pre-production
I
organization.
wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you wonder how far in advance he actually had the script. Because I wouldn't be surprised if he had it close to 7 years prior to this movie, because it can take that long to get a movie made,
Right.
right? And a movie like this, like it's got to be a tough sell.
Right.
Like he probably had to like use his white voice to get this movie sold,
Ironically, yeah. And
right?
it's funny because like it probably wouldn't have come out if it didn't come out when it came out, like after Get Out with Black Klansman, where there are other people who had that leverage in society who are well respected enough to get it out to be trusted to make money with the movie that they're going to put out. So it's very timely, and it's. I mean, I'm glad it was able to be released.
I think one of the reasons they got a lot of the talent in this movie is just because the script is so good.
So
Right, like the script is, it's really there. Like I was thinking about all the different cameos, and I'm just like, they probably read this thing and were like, yeah, I'll do it. Like this sounds this sounds intense. It has a lot to say of great poignance. Um, let's maybe jump a little further into the film.
Yeah.
Um, okay, something that I would love to ask you about um, is Detroit. Her character, I don't know what to make of, because it
Mm-hmm.
was this whole thing throughout the movie. I'm like, should I like her or should I not like her? Is she two faced? Like, because sometimes she is like she hates his white voice, but
Yeah.
then we see her use her own version, right? Selling art to rich people,
Mm-hmm.
um, and like then she has that like sex thing with the coworker, and he's
Mm-hmm.
kind of skeevy also. Um, I was just kind of like, curious, like, what do you make of her? Because she's an interesting character. I just was like very confused about how the filmmaker wanted me to feel about her, essentially.
I yeah. Um,
Oh,
Uh,
you froze on us.
her go in. She's this like activist person that it's like comparing and contrasting the person who's going in and like feeding into this to try to survive and the person who's like protesting this and trying to survive. But when you get to her art, her very obscure art exhibit, it's like she kind of becomes a hypocrite because she's like speaking in a British accent and doing all the things that she was criticizing, which I mean it's not, there's truth in that criticism, but then it's like hypocritical. But then it's also like I started to question when they started throwing the balloons of pig's blood at her. I'm like, what
yeah.
is this really gonna do?
Were
Like, are
they
people going to understand and like take from
yeah.
that? You know what I mean? Like,
the
so
the
to me,
balloons? Was
it's
it
like,
pig's blood? I thought it was like
oh,
chemicals. Wasn't it like bags of
it's,
toxic chemicals or something?
It was pig's blood.
Oh, it was pig's blood. Okay.
Yeah.
yeah,
Marquise just made a really good point. She only used her white voice when she was selling something, which was the same situations that Cash was using his white
Right.
voice.
And
that's
she
true.
was kind of okay with him doing his thing
That's true.
until he started crossing the picket line, right?
Yeah.
Like she
Yeah.
did have like her own level of acceptability there.
Yeah, I think it's definitely it's very thought provoking, and I think it does well to just create something for you to think about, to
Yeah.
like ponder, to see both sides. And I think that it made it stronger because it would be, I would question something that's only showing me one side, like this is the bad thing, this is not what you should be doing. Like I respect them more because I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
you let me come to my own conclusions.
And there was that
Um,
element of like socialism versus capitalism with the strike, right? And he has to kind of choose. And it's like when you're, I think the film makes a really good and solid point about when you're benefiting from capitalism, it's very hard to go the socialist route and to have like this egalitarian, let's share the wealth, because he makes this point where he's like, I'm good at this, and it does feel good as a human to be good at something.
right.
So
Okay.
I really like that kind of struggle between capitalism and socialism. What's up, Rochelle?
Go back to Detroit. So real quick, I was a huge fan of those her earring game. Like yes, yes, yes. And Jacob also a fan. What did you guys think of them? And like, do you think that the earrings? I mean, yeah, that's probably the point. But do you think they match like each scene and each?
Oh,
Uh, yeah.
There was a couple
okay.
times they were called out where I wasn't entirely sure why. Like when they had the electric chair ones, they make a
To me, what it made me think about was like how people are just out trying to do whatever they can to survive, and then you can do something like, for example, like if you're caught with like a dime bag and you're thrown into jail, and
Mm.
it's like the extreme of where the system of basically slavery is going to, just for trying to survive. And like I appreciated her wearing them because it's like really like, holy shit, like what, that's just where my brain went.
yeah.
She's like bringing attention to, it's like with the seriousness behind and the realness behind all of the jokes that he's like putting up. I don't
Yeah.
know if that makes
I know
sense.
some
Yeah,
of
totally.
them
Kind of,
were
I get that.
song lyrics. That does make sense though.
Yeah.
But they were also just like good, phenomenal
Oh yeah, no,
pieces
yeah,
to
for
be.
sure.
To be
They were,
wearing.
they were
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I one of like everything she wore had a statement of like just who what she thought. Like the future is female. I wore my shirt because of that.
Nice.
But hers said the future is female ejaculation, which I was like, yeah, I mean, okay. But she was not afraid to say what she thought, and I appreciated that. I thought it was a breath of fresh air.
Yeah. What are
I
you
did.
gonna
I
say, Sean?
liked her character personally.
I love.
I mean, I agree. I didn't. I was a little confused what Boots Riley was going for with her character, but again, I think he left that up to the audience to decide. So good on
I
him.
I think I
Um,
really wanted to know why she slept with the union guy.
that was so fucking pointless. That made me angry. I was like, why?
Because he's kind of skeevy about it, right?
Yeah, from the dead.
Is it just revenge? Is it just like a revenge?
I, I don't know what to make of that because it seemed like it was more because they were for the same cause, and like maybe she didn't feel like she was connecting to Cash as much
Hmm.
because he was like selling out to the other side, and but then they get back together at the end, I
Well,
think, or
right. Well,
Cash.
in the scene where she hooks up with him, like she asks what he thinks of the show, and he's like,
Right,
"Oh, it was like fire." Like he doesn't
right,
even know
like he
what
didn't.
to make of it. Right?
Right,
He has
right,
no like articulate thoughts about it, and she kind of calls him out on it, and she's like,
yeah,
"That's it." But then she sleeps with him anyway.
right,
That was a very strange scene to me because I was just like, it's almost like anti-chemistry, but then it happens
yeah.
anyway.
Marquise
Well, it's
said
also
that.
very human, I think. She just broke up with her boyfriend. Maybe she's emotional, and she's like, you know what? I'm just gonna do this. Like,
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense,
predetermined.
right?
Marquise said that she felt appreciated and understood by him. I don't know if I agree with that. Marquise, if you could elaborate on that, that'd be great. We might have to circle back to that eventually. But yeah, just depending on the delay here. Yeah, I don't agree with that. And it doesn't sound like you guys agree with that.
Wait,
Yeah,
I think I
I,
missed it.
I I liked that his character was kind of unlikable because he was the one sort of kickstarting this movement that we should be behind, right?
I
So I kind of liked the juxtaposition of like, somebody has to do it, and it might be a guy that you don't like, but that doesn't mean what he's doing isn't right.
I didn't. I didn't really dislike him. Maybe I think I felt like I liked him a lot because he was like so willing to stand up and be like, "We got to do this," and I don't care if I'm the bad guy for doing this.
Hmm.
Like, what? I'm curious. What makes him dislikable?
Well, he
Maybe I
does
missed
kind
that.
of the same thing that that Army Hammer characters does, where he goes, "We need you. We need your energy to Cassius." Right? He
Yeah.
does that. And like he's got it's a really funny moment where he's like giving the speech and he starts going off the rails about gonorrhea.
That's, yeah. Okay. Okay. I forgot. I
Like
think
there's
I like blocked that out of my mind because I was like, "Is that just for a
we
joke or what?"
don't, yeah, we don't need gonorrhea. I think these right, it's just like, who is this guy? And he goes from like job to job, like attempting to start these like
Right.
union bits. So there was just kind of this question of like, why not just stay in a job and participate in that union? Like, what is his personal agenda? So I just found him interesting, and I feel like there were these kind of deliberate attempts to make him somewhat unlikable. Um,
Yeah. It just
regardless of like how that plays out with the character or with the actor.
it's interesting because I used to work for AFSCME. It's like a huge labor union in DC, and it was very interesting to see the counter argument against unions. Like the idea, because to me he seems so like for the worker, wanting to like just create an equal playing field so that they're not taken advantage of. And I kind of I mean, it doesn't seem. I question his personal motivations as a character to do that, but I thought it was a great overall like representation of the want for everyone across like in any field to just be able to live and to work. So I guess I saw him less as a character and more as like that idea. Um,
That's
yeah,
fair.
that's my 2 cents. But I mean, it was weird. It was weird how he was like, and he was
Yeah.
skeevy when he was
Well,
like trying to get at her. Like I
I
did
think
think
that
that.
unionization, despite all its positive benefits for society, is a messy
Mhm.
business.
Right.
And it
That's
has historically been, a very messy thing.
and he is
Uh,
a messy person.
and he's a
So
messy person. So I think that that is kind of a nice uh, characterization there. Rochelle, you look like you had thoughts. No?
No, I did.
people
I
are people.
I liked what
Was
he
that?
stood for. As far as like his actual role character, I was indifferent. But if at the very beginning when he's brought into the story, it's very obvious that this his relationship with Cash is not gonna turn out for them to be BFFs. Doesn't he call him an asshole like straight away?
Oh,
Cash.
I don't doubt it. I don't think
Yeah, I
that.
think
I
he
don't
does.
remember it.
I think he does. Because I remember going, yeah, you are an asshole. But I did like once that little blip was over, I was into his movement. And I found it interesting that he basically just traveled around and found jobs like this that were needing his work at the end of the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and trying to like find the other local leaders within those jobs. People like because the thing that like a union needs is they need the vital workers to be on their side, right? And
Right.
so if
That's
he's the best salesman on the floor, like the company wants to lose him the least, so he's the most valuable to the strike. So it does make sense on a strategic level, and I like how you see him as sort of that idea rather than a character.
I mean, but to be fair, he's kind of it's a weird character. But not every character can have complex personhood, I guess.
And he's just an interesting actor to kind
Yeah.
of choose for that role. Um, yeah, I thought it was nice. Um, so can we talk about the big
Yeah.
third act
The third
Yeah.
in
act.
this?
Okay. I have a lot to say about that shit. Real quick, before we even get into what happened, does that sharp left turn within the third act alienate viewers? Like, I saw it as like an unlearning period, like when I mean, I guess we can even relate it to right now. Like, we're unlearning a lot in this situation, and I really related it to that experience. So in that sense, I don't think it alienated viewers, but throughout the reviews that I read, it seemed to do so. What do you guys think? Danielle, take it away.
Um, just
Do you,
from without talking about it or
no,
about what
no,
it
go
is.
into it. Get
Yeah,
into it.
you can go into
Okay,
it.
okay. Okay. So
Equinestrians.
yeah. So there's this turn where Cash is meeting the big boss, and he's like this very just gross human being, in my opinion. Um, and he's like
The
trying to get him all
grossest.
cooked up and super yeah, no, for sure. Like, and so he's like trying to force him to do something, and you don't know what that is. And he's like, I gotta go to the bathroom, guys. Like, just let me go to the bathroom. And he finally lets him go, and he opens up the stall, and he finds this like half man, half horse person
Yeah.
who is like in so much pain, and it's like you just see him in all of his like he's like big, muscular. He has a big dick, and he's just like, I don't know what to do with my life. Please help me. And it's horrifying. It's like what? Where did this come from? And like for me, like watching this movie, I was waiting for something like that to happen. I wasn't expecting that, but I get why he did it because it's like when you unveil like the systematic oppression, like the heart of it to someone who has no idea, it is that shocking. You don't want to believe it. It sounds absurd. And then when you when he starts like trying to get the word out, people don't believe him because it's like, what do you mean, horse people? Like, I would be
It
like,
sounds crazy, yeah.
yeah, it is
When he
crazy.
first makes the
But
call to the news, it just sounds so. It sounds like a crazy person.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And then the video gets out, and it's
Like,
awful.
yeah,
When he's like, "You guys need to get back, or I'm going to turn you into glue." It's like,
yeah.
but
You
like that's
wonderful
really
monstrosities. Yeah, I think
good.
of some wonderful monstrosities. Oh my
Yeah,
god.
it's like this weird, like, oh, I'm going to take these people that I find fascinating, that I like to watch for my own entertainment, and I'm going to turn them into something that doesn't benefit them, but like make slave labor out of it.
Yeah,
It's like a super out there like depiction of that. And I mean, I do get how people could be thrown off by it because it's very shocking. I
yeah,
don't like, I'm not shaming anyone who was like, oh God, what? It's like brain shut off because it is a lot. But I mean, I thought it was very accurate. As someone who likes to make satire and isn't afraid to like do stuff like that, I was like, hell yes. Like, but it took me a while to, to get there.
I appreciated it because it's hard to shock me in film and television. Uh, I usually can call shit right away, and I had no fucking idea what that was coming. To
Yeah.
just touch on how you were saying that like people just couldn't believe it, I thought there was a very powerful line within that act that said, "If you show people a problem, but they don't know what to do about it, they just learn to get used to it."
yeah.
Right.
And I think we're seeing a lot of
That
that
is a
right now.
brutally truthful line.
Yeah.
Also, I think that in terms of to answer your original point about like why reviewers turned off, anytime you throw like a giant horse cock on screen, you're gonna get
Yeah.
people
Like,
that are just like, I can't take it. My like, So the fact that they showed them and showed them naked, I think, you're
there was,
absolutely right that the point is to be shocking because it's like he's had the veil over his eyes of just like, here's money, and like his apartment is like the nicest apartment you've ever seen, like, and so it's like, oh, and this is happening to me, like, I'm
I might be turning into this horse person.
right, but then it's like, okay, the truth is actually just the most horrific thing you can imagine. And we're going to just visually come up with the most horrific thing we can imagine to act as the metaphor for something that is real.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
it's
yeah.
the metaphor is really obvious if you've seen it. It's about like the dehumanization that capitalism breeds, basically, and it was on the nose. And one
Yeah.
thing that really kind of, I don't know why my mind went here, and I haven't seen this movie in a long fucking time, but the horse transformation reminded me of the ass transformations in Pinocchio when he goes to Pleasure Boy Island.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
man, get
That
it.
was that traumatized me as a child. Just
Me too.
FYI.
Yeah.
That
You
movie
were on.
was terrifying with but yeah, it is actually very reminiscent of that.
Yeah.
I think it's important to point out that the big guy upstairs, I forget his name. He was like the CEO of this company that they kept showing throughout the movie called Worry Free, where
Yeah.
it was like this place that if people didn't want to worry about where they're going to get their next meal or having a place to sleep, like they can just go sign their life away, not get paid, but
Yeah.
always have that,
Lifetime
but work.
contracts.
Right. Exactly. So, and it's like he was taking those people and
Yeah.
like upping them to be more efficient and profitable for him.
And
And
what's
he had this
interesting,
weird
yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
fascination with them. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
what's interesting about Worry Free also is that when Cash first watches it on TV, he's like, "What do you think of this thing? Is it really all that bad? It could be nice just
Yeah.
to be taken care of." Like, he's been like, it's being sold so hard to him that he's like, why wouldn't
Maybe.
I? Maybe that is a better alternative than like trying to hack it out when all we really want is security. But it's like, the
It makes
further
it
in he
more.
gets, the more he realizes what it really
Yeah, it
is.
takes the judgment of like, how people could be like, how could you, if you don't want to be a slave like enslaved, like why would you buy into this? It's like, no, you're in a position where you're forced into it.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's what that says, and it puts
Right.
more of the blame on the CEO. So
Right. And
especially
that it's
after,
also painted in a way. It's painted in a way where it's not so bad, right?
right,
Like,
right,
I think about like the sort of casual educational racism that you get, where it was like there were indentured servants in the early Americas too, right? That would
yeah,
like indenture themselves to pay for the trip for like a decade. But it's like, yeah,
I
but
would
that's
argue that
bullshit, right?
I would
yeah.
argue that joining our military is indentured servitude, but maybe we shouldn't go there. Um, uh, one thing I
I
also think, oh, go ahead, Danielle.
I thought it was interesting how they also portrayed all of that after putting Cash on the spot at the party, where they were like, "Oh, why don't you rap for us? Like, oh, why
Yeah.
don't you tell us a story about your like gangsters stuff?" Like, they wanted. It's like they have this fascination for these people that they're playing, and it just, yeah. I feel like that's a little bit of a change of topic. So, were
Um,
you going to say something
well, I
about?
don't think military. I feel like maybe we save that for another movie.
Yeah,
But with like in that scene where he's put on the spot, it really did highlight to me that like they all look at him like a stereotype.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Rap for us, and he's like, I can't rap.
no, yeah, yeah,
We had a similar. There was a similar bit in Clockers, Rochelle, that we reviewed where he likes trains. He's just like, what? I like trains. Like,
yeah,
what? Kid in the projects can't like trains.
yeah.
Um,
One
it
thing though
reminded me
is
of that. Like,
Cash very quickly bit into that stereotype when
but
he
he
was,
goes, I'm just gonna give them what they want. This is
yeah,
what they expect, right? He's a
yeah,
salesman.
Right, and I just started screaming when he started his chant, and then people started chanting back, and I was just like, oh my god, like literally they just want permission to be able to
Yeah,
say the N word, or just to
yeah,
like be a part of Black culture without being a part of
yeah,
Black culture, and
yeah,
having their like foot on it, like, okay, I have power over it. It was just, to me, that
yeah.
was horrifying. Like,
One,
Without
I legit,
having to work at Worry Free, we still want to
yeah,
act like,
yeah. Well, it
yeah.
actually reminded me. So when Kendrick Lamar blew up, his first major concert was at the Del Mar Fairgrounds in San Diego, and there was so many white kids, and they were rapping along to everything he said, N words included. And I just sat there. I'm a huge fan of him, and I was like, these fucking kids, like, and it was just so reminiscent of that, and to see it there on the film, to be honest with you, was even more shocking because obviously Kendrick Lamar doesn't repeat that word over and over and over and over like Cash did. And just the comfortable nature of these people chanting along with him was
yeah, yeah.
It's
The whole Act Three is it's so
it goes
it's
it's
so over and in your face, and they have just the whole rebellion. Uh,
I thought
yeah,
the rebellion was really interesting because it wasn't necessarily like everybody, like humans were like trying to rebel and they were getting their asses kicked, and but then you like take out the people who are actually enslaved and they're like rioting, protesting, like it's like self-defense, and then they actually get somewhere, they like take him out. Like, I thought it was interesting that he didn't like Boots Riley didn't put what's his name, Cash, in the fight. He was just sitting there watching it because he was just chained up. He couldn't do anything else.
yeah.
And but then at the at the end, when he turns into a horse person, he's like, "I'm the person breaking in this time, bitch!" Like,
I also do think that that was like a twofold thing with the him being in the van, because I think also it makes it easier to film the
that's real. That's real.
right.
Yeah.
Like we get his reaction to everything, and we just kind of have to show this one section of the street. Like it's smart. It's smart filmmaking on a budget. Um, yeah, but I do
this
think
movie was
that's
very smart.
yeah, I do think that scene is what felt like the most poignant to right now, right? Because I've
Right.
seen a lot of discourse about, right, what's the go-to conservative line against protesting? Oh, the looters, right? But like, if you were turned into a horse person, you'd want to be throwing over cars and like destroying. Like, why? Of course you'd
It's self-defense
like.
at that point.
Not that I condone like rampant
Right.
destruction.
Right.
I consider myself a pacifist for the most part, and like, but it's so understandable. That's the
Yeah.
part that's crazy to me, and that's why I really don't like this argument of like, oh, but they're looting, we can't listen to them, and it's like
That's a way to
maybe they're
discredit
looting
them.
because you're not listening, right?
Right.
Uh,
It's like completely missing the point. Like people, it's a device to discredit someone's pain that they don't want to see or that they're used to. So they're like, well, why can't you be used to it? And it's like, well, we're the ones being hurt. So what else are we supposed to do? And
yeah.
So I could rant about that, but
Well, you have a platform here. I mean,
yeah,
I feel like ranting.
yeah. Well,
We are getting
yeah.
close to the hour mark.
So, but it was
Um, any like stuff we didn't cover that like you really wanted to highlight or like favorite moments? Yeah, Rochelle.
I thought that the commentary on like how the gig economy is drifting into fascism was so on the fucking nose, especially with the pass of what is it, AB5 here in California, where they've just completely screwed gig workers and
What
like
is that?
entertainment workers.
Because I'm not in California.
I am not familiar, but
You know what? I want to look it up to kind of properly explain it. But they are basically like not, how can I put this? They're putting them as employees. Anybody that's like a independent contractor, so like a Uber driver, instead of being this like gig based person on like a what is that called? 1099. They're trying to put them under like the employee status, which totally screws them as far as one, their taxes, two, their ability to qualify for like assistance with medical care. It's just, it's fucking us. It's totally fucking us. And yeah, it just completely totally spoke with me about what we're dealing with here. And I think the point of this was to help gig workers, but it just did not. It screwed us.
It's like doing the opposite.
The ass. Yeah. Like in the ass. So, yeah, and yeah.
It kind of reminds me of that character. I don't know how she pronounced it, but Miss Debauchery, where she was like, "I'm on your side. We're gonna do this," and then the guy's like, "Are we gonna get paid more?" And she's like, "No." And it's like, yeah. So I get
that scene in The Office cracked me up. Like, I do want to highlight just I feel like if you haven't seen this movie or you watch this whole episode, like it's a funny movie. I laughed a lot. And like scenes like that, like where the three different kinds of attempts at motivating just the worst job that you can think of. Like telemarketing is just the worst. On either end, whether you're getting telemarketing calls or whether you're the person who has to give those. Like, so scenes like that were great. My I feel like my favorite scene that, well, not my favorite, but the one that I thought was the funniest was the when he gets into a fight with his friend. I forget what his friend's name, the one he gives the car to at the end, and they're just complimenting each other.
Yeah.
He's like, maybe I'll buy you a drink. Oh, yeah, we should go out for drinks. Yeah, I'll buy you a drink. No, it's on me. Like,
maybe 9 drinks, maybe 10 drinks.
Yeah, 10 drinks.
They're like trying to outdo each other.
It's so good. They're just upping each other with compliments and then generosity. And just like the other people's reaction to it is just kind of this, like,
Can you stop?
What's going on? Yeah, that was like, I laughed very.
The funny moments that I appreciated throughout the film, and Marquise actually just reminded me of, was that the TV shows were all news, humiliation, or game shows, and like just absurd commercials, which like I just loved, and every single person gave me a giggle.
The tone was very like. Have you guys seen Natural Born Killers?
Yes.
If not yet,
Um,
I need to.
yeah, that one, like the satire in that one of like the bit with Rodney Dangerfield where he's like the it's like a play on the family sitcom, and Rodney
Mhm.
Dangerfield is like, there's like a laugh track, everybody's laughing, but he's just a monster of a
Mhm.
husband father. It reminded me of that, just like the stylization and
Yeah.
like that show. I got the shit kicked out of me. Like
It's like,
what a show.
yeah, yeah. It's like,
Uh,
but it also points at like what people are willing to do to try to just make it out of whatever hellhole they're in, of
I'll
like
go
trying
through
to
anything. Yeah,
survive,
go
which
through
is
Mhm.
just
anything.
it's sad. It's sad. Like they
And
had
he
to
goes,
humiliate Cash to let him to listen to him.
yeah, just
Like,
to play that video. And then the part where I went too real, this movie's too real, is when the stock goes up
Yes.
after the video
yeah,
gets released. Like the video gets released of, all right, you beautiful monsters, I'll turn you into horse glue if you don't cooperate. The stock jumps and he's like getting awards and praise. And it's just like, that is what it feels like. Right? It's just like too real,
yeah.
too real.
Too,
Uh,
too soon, too soon,
yeah,
but
it's
real.
it's satire, but it's also like, good satire is heavy truth, right?
Right.
And I feel like this movie kind of nails that in a way that is both abrasive but also funny, but
Mhm.
also thoughtful. There's a lot going on with this movie. I
You
really feel
definitely
like it got overlooked. Was that
I feel
Danielle?
like you need a lot of context. Like satire is really great when you are aware of everything, but if you don't know the full context, you don't understand anything, then it's really easy to be like, "Oh, this is silly. This is stupid. Like, I don't get it. It doesn't make sense." So I definitely do think that like that might be why, because some people just aren't very they're very privileged to not be aware of that, and it's very telling, and it's like a reflection of our society. If anything, this movie's a mirror.
Oh yeah, completely.
So
Yeah.
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 it's
Yeah.
interesting.
One thing that we need to talk about, which just cracked me the fuck up, was when Cash was asking Detroit about whether or not his penis grew, as opposed to like his face
It's not
changing.
Yeah, it's
like
like, why
it's
would you? Why? Because he just wanted to flash her or something. Uh, is it bigger? She's like, why go there?
Yeah.
And then she's like, yeah, your nostrils do look bigger because you're flaring them.
right,
like,
like
like just automatically, he's like, I have it, I have it.
yeah,
Um, that ending also, I did appreciate.
Yeah.
yeah.
No, Danielle, what did you think about that ending and how it took so long for him to like go through that transformation? Like why do you think it was not immediate?
I think that that is like movie magic. It does break. I mean, everything in this movie is absurd, but it breaks the suspense of disbelief. I feel like it would have happened earlier on, but they wanted to see it through the end. So, but then once he became like, it's interesting that he wasn't a part of the fight because he wasn't a horse person. But then once he became a horse person, he was like, "All right, it's my turn. I'm gonna break in. I'm gonna like beat your face in," or whatever he was gonna do. I don't know if he was actually gonna do that, but it's interesting because to me, he still wanted to do the right thing when he wasn't a horse person, but he had all the more reason to once it like started affecting him directly, even more directly.
Yeah,
Um,
he was
that
able to sidestep and ignore his conscience when it
yeah,
wasn't directly affecting him. Like
right.
it took everything to get the empathy, which
Yeah,
is
it added to his character arc because he literally went from yeah I'm okay with selling slave labor or like perpetuating it to like oh no I'm gonna fight this like because now I'm a part of it. So
mm.
he had a full spectrum for people to observe.
Yeah, it was a beautiful character. I completely agree with that.
And
Yeah.
he was super problematic, but he
But
made his
yeah.
he tried he, he he fought the
And
fight.
sometimes that's what it takes for people to get into a fight,
Yeah,
is like it takes being very directly affected by it. it's so like I think that is part of the moral of this story is just that like it's so easy to ignore things when it's not directly affecting you. When you're not the horse person, it's
Right.
very easy to ignore it.
But it's like urgent for us to stop it before it gets there. But
Mm.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I don't know
yeah,
if this movie gave me any hope for humanity, considering it
yeah,
came out in the past and we seem to be walking right into it.
yeah.
Um, but it did give us a lot of good food for thought. I think this is a good spot to wrap up. Um, thank you so much for joining us, Daniel Gibson. You have been a phenomenal guest, and you're welcome back anytime.
Yes, please.
Um, where can the people find you? Oh no, did you freeze? She
I
froze.
think she froze.
Right, right now. Well, maybe she'll come back in a minute. Rochelle, um, where can the people find you?
On Instagram at Rochelle Racine, which you will see spelled appropriately there.
Yeah, right there.
And linked below.
And link
Danielle!
below. Oh no, have we lost Danielle?
Yeah,
Maybe she'll
I think
she'll
so.
pop back in. Well, we seem to have lost Danielle, but hopefully not too soon. She was a wonderful guest.
Yeah.
Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on Instagram. I realize that it's not on this page at the moment. I need to work out some kinks with the new service. But go to at Views and Paradox. There she goes.
Yeah.
So maybe
Oh,
she'll come back. If she comes back in, we'll pop her back in.
yeah.
If she can reconnect. So yeah. So thank you everybody on the Facebook group. If you're watching this and you're new, we have a group on Facebook, Movie Club Collective. It might even come up if you type in Views and Paradox now. I guess we'll have to test that out.
Yeah. But make sure
So
it's the group, not the page, because the group is where like all the fun conversation goes down. Whereas the page is more for like updates on all the stuff that we're evolving as we go through this. Also, just real quick, thank you to everybody that commented within this live stream. This is the
yes.
most like interaction that we've ever had, and it really enriches our conversation. So please in the future continue this because we love bringing in other people, even though your face maybe not plastered within here, like you still add a lot, and we love adding
Yeah, we
value.
appreciate it. This was
Yeah.
really nice. I think this was a good episode. And is there anything else we're forgetting?
Well,
Okay.
next week. I don't
Yeah,
think we
next week's film. We have. I'm sorry. I meant to let you know what our guest response was this morning. So we are switching to a vastly different genre next week. We're going anime, and we're going to be
no.
watching.
Is
Yeah,
it?
yeah, that's next week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, our guest will
Okay.
be
Yeah.
D. Vlaches. He's another a film guy, and the film that we're going with is Mirai from 2018 or 2017. It was nominated for an Oscar, and it can be found on Hulu. So go ahead, watch Mirai. Let us know if you think it's good, and we'll be posting about it throughout the week. So I suppose that's it.
Yep.
And
Thank you guys.
Danielle, by the way, messaged us and said it's like thundering. There's thunderstorms where she's at, so her connection might have gone down due to inclement weather. It sounds like. Um, but we loved having Danielle on. And without further ado, take care of yourselves and watch more movies.
Happy viewing. That's a wrap.
Bye.
Ciao.
All right, and we're off.